It's been almost 1 month since the tragic and untimely death of award-winning journalist Michael Hastings. He's probably best known for an investigation that ended up bringing down the career of Stanley McChrystal, then commanding general of the Afghanistan war. And in the early morning of June 18th, Hastings died in a mysterious and fiery car crash in Los Angeles. The LAPD officially declared it an accident. However, since that day, the lack of answers surrounding the incident have only led to more questions. With very little information available and the LAPD stonewalling any investigation, it's hard to know if we'll ever get the answers. But friends of Hastings and some independent investigators have not given up and insist that there is more to the story. Earlier, I spoke to two people concerning the investigation. First, I spoke to Joe Biggs, a personal friend of Hastings who has gone public about why he thinks this was not just an accident. I first asked Joe how well he knew Michael.
I met him back in 2008. He was embedded with my unit in Afghanistan, and he spent, after a few delays, he was supposed to go on to some other places. He ended up getting stuck there. He was there with me for about 3 months.
You said that you have reason to believe that Michael's death was not an accident. Why?
Well, I got that email, which everyone knows by this point, on a Monday morning, and just the very essence of the whole email, how it was written, the way he normally, when he started off speaking to me, it would be, how are you doing, how's the family? And this was kind of just completely different and panicked and rushed, and it didn't seem like him at all, so I just didn't feel weird. I mean, I didn't feel right. It felt weird just reading it. So I called him, didn't get any answers. I texted him, I didn't get any answers, and I just felt bad. I asked a few people, I said, what would you do if you got something like this from a buddy of yours? It just doesn't seem right. Well, the day goes on, and later on that night, I get the email. I get a call from a friend saying that he had died. And it's just odd, you know, this happening after that email. And then just the circumstances of the whole accident itself don't seem to add up to it being an accident.
I wanted to read that email really quickly for people who haven't seen it. It says, it was sent to you, friends, at BuzzFeed, only hours before his death, which read, the feds are interviewing my close friends and associates. Perhaps if the authorities arrived at BuzzFeed headquarters, may be wise to immediately request legal counsel before any conversations or interviews about our news gathering practices or related journalism issues. Also, I'm onto a big story, and I need to go off the radar for a little bit. Joe, has he said anything similar to this before, or was this totally out of the blue?
Yeah, this was pretty much out of the blue. I mean, the times he had ever been worried about things, he had called me and we'd spoke on the phone about it. Back in 2010 when he released that story on McChrystal, or General McChrystal, he talked to me how he was worried, you know, and I was, you know, I had told him I would be worried too. I mean, you just got to, basically had a general of a war fired. I'm pretty sure that's not going to sound too well with him and, you know, the people that helped him get to that position. So, you know, usually it would always start off with kind of like, how's the family, this and that, and then concerns about whatever was going on. And this just jumped straight into it. So that's why it threw up a red flag.
Right. Yeah, I mean, especially since your gut kind of told you that something was very wrong. He's never had the suspicion that him or his family were being investigated because of his work before, and has he ever wanted to go off the radar before?
Not that I recall. He's never used that term.
Did anyone figure out why he thought the FBI was investigating him?
Well, I mean, he was working on a few stories. He was doing some stuff with the NSA, or looking into the NSA, the CIA, Barrett Brown, and I mean, basically what happens is someone's got to be a whistleblower. Someone gives him the tip, and he starts going, you know, chasing a story. And I'm sure he spooked somebody, and, you know, he kind of felt threatened by it.
Joe, did you follow up with any of his friends? Did he talk to any about why he was out that late that night? Did anyone talk to him the day he died about what he was doing that day?
Well, before the LAPD had actually been to his house for some strange reason. I got an anonymous email from someone saying that the LAPD was called out to his house just prior, and that he was seen looking under his car. As far as friends saying anything, I was at the memorial service a couple Sundays ago, and I spoke to a lot of his close friends, and no one mentioned anything of that.
And WikiLeaks, of course, had that tweet where they said that Michael had contacted them regarding the investigation being done on him. I wanted to read it. It says, Michael Hastings contacted WikiLeaks lawyer Jennifer Robinson just a few hours before he died, saying that the FBI was investigating him. Joe, did he ever talk to you about this? And has there been any follow-up with WikiLeaks that you know of to find out what they know?
See, I'm not sure about that. I do know he contacted a lawyer, and I know it's not a WikiLeaks lawyer. So that whole thing, I'm still trying to figure out myself.
All right, Joe. I had the chance to speak to Kimberly Dvorak, national security and foreign policy correspondent based in San Diego, who's been conducting a very thorough investigation into Michael's death. I first asked Kimberly what drove her to look deeper into the matter.
After, kind of sitting on the news, I think it shook a lot of journalists to see that this had happened. I actually sat on the story for a good couple of weeks before it just kept bugging me, kept nibbling at my mind, thinking, hey, you need to go up and have a look at this and see what's really going on. So once I decided to go up to Los Angeles and actually spend the day up there and kind of retrace what happened, speak to relevant agencies that are involved in this, it became quite clear quite quickly that this seemed to be a lot more than just a single car accident. And it seemed that a lot of the details that were being provided to the media who aren't in the Los Angeles area were, fuzzy at best. Let's put it that way.
And let's go over those details. Set the scene of the car crash for us. What kind of road, how fast was he going, and what were the other circumstances that we know of?
But he was traveling down North Highland Boulevard, which is 2 lanes in either direction, plus a really big wide lane on the outside for parking in the evenings for residents that live there. So this was a very wide road. It wasn't like dark or dim or things like that. It was a well-lit part of the road there. And he was traveling down high rate of speed. Some say 100 miles an hour, some not. And then for some undetermined reason, he made a 60-degree turn directly into a palm tree, and then the car exploded. That's what the law enforcement LAPD is saying, and witnesses are saying that no, they heard explosions before the car hit the palm tree, and it kind of rolled into the palm tree. Now, once you look at the scene and you look at damage on the curbs and you see where the engine and the drivetrain were, which were behind the vehicle, so basically it defied gravity in my mind. In talking with the university engineering department in theirs as well, they said that the engine should have been the opposite direction. It's also important to note that the Mercedes-Benz, this was a 2013 car. Mercedes says their cars are not designed to blow up. In fact, they go to great strides to make these cars incredibly safe. And if there's like a sensor that shuts down all of the flammable liquids like the transmission oil or the gasoline so it doesn't explode. So that kind of was an interesting detail to look at.
I just wanted to break all these down because it's a lot of information at once, and I just want to kind of digest it for the audience. There was no skid marks as well. I mean, if someone's going that fast and they skid into a tree, you would think that they would slam on the brakes. There was no skid marks on the ground. You said that you've spoken to witnesses who said that they saw sparks, explosions before the car crash. I mean, what's the significance of these explosions? And you also contacted the bomb squad. What information did you get about what they say about the explosions?
Okay, I mean, in theory, when you see no skid marks, and like I said, when you're actually out there on the street and you're looking at this, you're just like, this is insane. I have no idea how they could come to that conclusion just sitting there staring at the actual scene. LAPD Stonewall gave me nothing. Obviously, I'm waiting for my FOIAs to come back. I've requested 911 calls. I think the 911 call would be really interesting to hear what the first, witnesses on the scene were saying to law enforcement, why bombs, smelling dogs were not dispatched to the scene, why we don't have access to the vehicle. There are just a number of questions that would be able to help us figure out what happened. And
I wanted to pull up an article from the Huffington Post where former National Coordinator for Counterterrorism Richard Clark said that Hastings' car crash was consistent with a car cyber attack. There's reason to believe that intelligence agencies from major powers, including the U.S., know how to remotely seize control of a car. Kimberly, can you speak to why this crash looks like it could have been the result of a car hack?
Some of that, and I actually took it one step further. We have a lot of drone manufacturers here in San Diego, and I went out and spoke to a couple of these folks, and they said that you don't even have to hack into the computer system of a vehicle. You can just trigger a sensor, and it's going to make the car either slam the brakes on, accelerator go, headlights go out, windshield wipers. There's a number of things by just triggering a sensor on the vehicle, And that way they couldn't there was no recourse to that. You couldn't go back and find who hacked into the system because all they did was touch the sensor. So there's a lot of talk that this could have been done. At this point, we don't have all the details, and that's why it's critical that we get the police report. It's critical that we get the report from Mercedes, because whatever happened with that vehicle that night, all of that information would be sent via a black box that's on that vehicle. It would have been sent to Mercedes-Benz. Mercedes is anxious to go into Los Angeles and work with the PD. What they tell me is they have not received that call from the Los Angeles Police Department, and I believe the police department here is just looking at it like they let it go as a simple car accident. It's gotten a little bit bigger than that, and now they don't know what to do. And hopefully they're going to, figure this out. But I'm going to, stay on this. I've got an attorney that we're filing a lawsuit if need be to get this information from the Los Angeles Police Department.
So just to be clear, there is a black box and a way to access this after the fact.
After the fact, yeah, whenever the airbag is triggered, it automatically sent, and all cars, BMWs and Affinities, whatever kind of car that's a modern day car, they have that ability. And these cars, in particular, that all of the report would have, like in a nanosecond, been sent to Mercedes-Benz. So I think Mercedes knows a little bit more than they're letting on. I think that they deserve a little more pressure on this as well. I mean, it's quite simple to prove that no foul play was involved in this.
I just out of my own personal curiosity, I find it odd that former counterterrorism official Richard Clark, he's a government insider. I mean, why do you think that he would even come out and say that the U.S. government has the ability to do this? It seems to me that this is almost even some sort of veiled threat saying like, well, this is kind of a chilling effect for journalists. I mean, what do you think about just the fact that he came out and said this?
I think that that's very telling, and I considered in the story that I wrote, writing a little journalist note stating that, if we're having journalists that are, being murdered, that's the ultimate and chilling effect for journalism. We've seen the government lately go after journalists listening to phone calls, hacking into computers. I've had issues with them. It seems if you are trying to investigate in any story, all they have to do is throw its national security out there. I kind of also I tried to contact Mr. Clark myself on several occasions, and they would not return the phone call. And I find it interesting. I also think that, and I think a lot of journalists are scared. And, as this is a high-profile case, I've received a lot of, great emails of support from people, but I've also received some threatening emails as well, that we have to make sure that, we are watching out for ourselves as well and doing everything in our power to make sure we're protected. But at the same point, this is our job. I'm an investigative journalist. This is what I do. It's what I love. And if this is indeed something that there was foul play, I think the American public deserves to know what and who did this to a journalist. It's very, very chilling. So.
Absolutely. And I just have one more question. I mean, has there been any sort of toxicology autopsy report released? And if not, why?
No, we haven't. And apparently there are two different types of toxicology reports. One will be a simple how much alcohol was in the system, if any, and if there was marijuana in the system. And the one that, and then I've been told by LAPD that there's a more extensive one. They haven't indicated which one was sent. That would go in and, put out any kind of, like if there was like heroin or, or any kind of micro. Somebody injected something into him he didn't know, or he drank something at a club and somebody put something in there, it would pick that stuff up.
Kimberly, we have about 30 seconds left, but based on the research in your investigation, I mean, I know that you hate to speculate, but what do you think is the most likely scenario here?
I think the two scenarios I laid out are the most likely, that either Michael decided that he was working on a story with such an incriminating nature to our government that he decided he needed to disappear, or the fact that he was murdered by someone. And by that someone, I don't know. It's way too early to speculate, but I'm inclined to believe that this was not a single car accident with no foul play involved in it. In my mind, at least, it would have to be a freak accident, like lightning struck and, all the stars had to align. I just don't see it. something happened here, and I think we need to get to the bottom of it. And LAPD needs to come up with these reports, and they need to, you know, at least release some of this. I'm hoping his wife is following through with all this. She has a lot of answers, and she should be able to get them from Mercedes and LAPD herself.
Well, thank you so much for asking questions and demanding answers. Is something that we all need to do. Appreciate your time, Kimberly.